Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for tuning in. This is the weekly Q&A live stream on this channel where we talk about things related to video content creation, YouTube, creator lifestyle, anything to help you make better video content and enjoy doing it. So that's what this live stream and this channel are all about. So thank you so much for tuning in. I have something, this is kind of silly, but also exciting that I wanted to tell you. I got these new hats made, and if you've looked on my channel, like you might have seen this logo before. I think it's one of the, I think it's the logo that I use like as my watermark on my videos. It's the logo on my website and on my Podia site. And so I finally got it made into a hat, and I'm super excited about that. Like, I had it printed through Printful, and we have an account with Printful, so you can get like the samples and stuff. And so I was finally like, man, I've got this other hat that I love. Yes, so this is the logo has a whole story behind it that I'll tell one day. I'm not going to tell the story today, but I was like, I need to get a hat like in this style with my logo on it. Like, that's a thing I should have. And so I went through Printful, I ordered it, and I was like watching the order status and the delivery status every day. And the range was supposed to be between today and like the 19th. And they delivered it today. So like like a little kid, I grabbed the keys and I ran up the street and I opened the mailbox, and there it was. And so it was very, very exciting. So I got this one, and then I had to try a couple of different colors. So I also have this one that's got kind of this teal color that kind of matches the branding color on my site. So I thought I would try both of them out. But I like it, and Keshna in the chat says it looks good, so I appreciate that. And then Keshna also asked if I made the theme song, and no, I did not, but that is something that I want to do. So that song is called, I think it's called The Aftermath, and it's one that I use from Epidemic Sound. So I have a subscription to Epidemic Sound, and I use like as background music for my videos, like the videos that I upload, for music that I use for like vlogs when I do them, all kinds of stuff. Anything that I do on YouTube, I use Epidemic Sound for. And I don't have like an affiliate link or whatever, but I love their search function links similar songs. And so like you can find a song and you're like, that's close, but it's not exactly right. And you can click there, like find similar songs, and it'll give you a whole list of songs that kind of fit in the same genre. And I find a lot of great tunes that way. So, so no, I did not make the theme song, but that is something that I may do at some point in the future, just to, you know, like give it a little bit more of kind of like the hat. Like I was wearing somebody else's hat, now I'm wearing my own hat. I'm using somebody else's song. Eventually, I'll use my own song. That takes a little bit more work though, putting together a song. So if you didn't catch last week's video, and I need to put up a new thumbnail so it's a little bit more obvious, but I went through my new production schedule, and it's really exciting because one of the things that really gets me hung up as a creator is like, when am I going to do all of the different pieces? And you know, for my personal stuff, the answer has been, oh, I'll just like, I know I have like pockets of free time here and there, and I know better than to think, oh, I'll get it done during those pockets of time. And so finally I did for myself what I've been doing all along for Podia, and that's actually have a written out, structured production schedule so that every part of the production process has a place. And so in last week's video, I went through all of that and talked about what kinds of videos I want to be putting out on this channel, how often, and where those, where in my schedule those videos are going to be written, filmed, edited, published, and all of that. And so I'm really excited. And the weekly Q&A is kind of the cornerstone of everything that I want to do for my channel. And so addressing questions on this live show is, and just like talking off the cuff, not going off of a script, is really where I want the genesis of a lot of these ideas to begin. So like I've outlined each of the questions, but I haven't written a script that I'm going to read from to answer them. Like I'm kind of like just going off the outline, and that thinking out loud is kind of a form of writing a rough draft. You know, it's my way of kind of distilling what I think and trying to articulate and communicate that. So this is my venue for becoming a better communicator. And it also gives me a rough draft of some of these videos that I might later turn into like fully fleshed out video content that I'll upload. So I'm really excited about the way that new production schedule is going to work and how the content is going to flow from that. So these are all things that benefit me, and hopefully in the process, I'll be answering questions that help you get unstuck, help you feel less alone, affirmed in what you're doing, and excited about the possibilities of what you can create. So without further ado, let's get into the questions. The first question is, it's one of my favorites. I love this question. Should you avoid clickbait titles? And this has been like, this is one of those things that I've kind of gone back and forth on as a creator. Because on the one hand, like I'm a little bit of a purist when it comes to art, and I don't want to like art and creativity, and I don't want to muddy the waters by using some gimmick or something like that to like get people to look at my stuff or whatever. And at the same time, the longer I've been a creator, the more I realize how valuable attention is, and that it takes a lot of effort to build up that attention momentum that some of these creators who have, you know, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of subscribers, like they've got the attention momentum. But in the beginning, like you're basically invisible. And so like I never wanted to be like, hey, look at me, look at me, look at my stuff. And that was for a couple of reasons. One, you know, I didn't want to be gimmicky, like I was saying, but two, I was afraid I couldn't deliver. Like people were going to click on something and then be disappointed. And where I am today, I think is my ideas about using clickbait have been informed by what I've experienced producing content for a startup SaaS company, working for Podia and doing video content there, and understanding more about how titles and thumbnails play a role in getting people to actually click on and watch videos in the first place, and then how the way you deliver on the promise in your title and thumbnail influence whether or not someone sticks around and eventually becomes a subscriber or customer or whatever your end goal is for that viewer. So there's the artistic side of me, and then there's the like practical side of me. And when I put them together, I come to this really interesting conclusion. And that conclusion is, I think it's good to use clickbait if, and there's a big if here, if you will deliver on the value. So with YouTube, the whole name of the game is satisfying the viewer's query. Somebody on the internet somewhere in the world has a question or needs something from content on the internet, from YouTube. They're looking for something. And so they do a search. They ask a question, or they type in a string of keywords or whatever it is. And the video that seems the most exciting and interesting by the title and the thumbnail has the best chance. And I'll throw in there the caveat that, like, sometimes the creator, the person who made it, and their reputation has something to do with that. You know, if you see somebody that you already know, like, and trust, you're a lot more likely to click on their content. But if you're just going off of the title and the thumbnail, the one that's the most clickbaity is likely to get the most attention. But YouTube will tank that video fast if the video isn't equally as satisfying. And so that's really the job. You have to get the click first. And that's why I think being clickbaity, and when I say being clickbaity, I don't mean being dishonest, but, you know, like using hyperbole and being a little bit like not necessarily exaggerating, but like using all caps, or using these techniques to get people's attention, and to kind of use like for example, with thumbnails, when you see a human face expressing big emotion, that draws your eye. And that is a kind of a clickbait tactic. Because you're doing something intentionally that doesn't necessarily like equal this is the content that's in the video. Like, you're not going to be making a shocked face the entire time in the video. But you're trying to express something that is like, you might feel this emotion watching this video. And so you got to get the click first, but then you've got to make your video as satisfying as possible to the reason that person is looking for that content in the first place. And so that would be my guidance for using clickbait. And I would also say, like, don't necessarily use it on every single video. I think you can kind of be strategic about how you use it, but I definitely wouldn't say, oh, never use clickbait, that's bad. Because at the end of the day, it's all about, can you get the click, one, and then two, can your video satisfy the reason the person is on YouTube in the first place? If you can say yes to both of those, you're good. All right, next question. All right, question number 2. This was actually from Keshna's question last week, and she kind of put it in the form of a statement. But she said, sometimes I don't really know like what to learn next. And so I put this in the form of a question and said, what if you don't know what to learn next? I think this is a common problem as a creator. You learn a lot of things, you know, like as you're getting into stuff. There's a lot of great information out there, but sometimes the problem is there's so much information, it's really hard to distinguish, okay, what's useful for me to know now, to distinguish that from, well, what's something that like is beyond my level right now, but I might need later. And And so you often find yourself in a place, and like this is true for me for a lot of different things, where it's like, I know what I know, but I don't know what I don't know. And whatever, like, so let's pretend that makes kind of a barrier. I've no idea what's just on the other side of that wall. So like you could put 10 videos in front of me or 10 books or whatever, and like they could all speak to different places along that journey that's on the other side of that wall, but I have no idea which one of those is the next right thing to learn, the next right book to read, the next right video to watch, the next right information to consume so that I can take the next step on my journey. So anyways, like I wanted to describe that problem because I think it's a common one for a lot of creators. So I thought of kind of 3 different things that, if you're experiencing that, can help you orient yourself and then also find ways to take the next step and discover what the next things to learn are. So the first one's really just a principle, and it's this idea that you don't try to work on level 10 stuff when you're on level 1. Like you're not, when you're first setting up your YouTube channel, for example, and you've never made your first video, you don't go buy the most expensive equipment and like build an incredible studio and try to like create all the branded stuff. Like you don't necessarily do all of that. Like you don't hire a team of people who are going to be your editors and affiliate marketers and stuff like you don't do all of that level 10 stuff when you're starting out. You focus on, okay, I'm just starting out. Let's just make the first video. Let me just grab my phone, turn on my camera, and make the first video and introduce myself to the internet. So that, I think that principle is helpful. And one of the things that we don't realize a lot of the times is like watching these channels with 1 million subscribers or hundreds of thousands of subscribers, when we've got like hundreds or tens of subscribers, can make us feel sometimes like, oh, we should be doing what they're doing. And it takes our focus away. It kind of creates a false sense of where we should be, because that's what we're seeing and that's what we're following. And I don't think there's anything wrong with aspiring to be, like a Peter McKinnon or a Casey Neistat or a Gary Vaynerchuk or whoever your favorite, famous YouTube creator is. But there's so many steps in between, and there's so many levels in between, and you owe it to yourself not to put the expectation of trying to be a level 10 creator when you're still working on level 1 or 2 or 5 or wherever you are. So I think that principle is just a really good one to remember right off the bat. And then the second thing is, you want to find people at your level, at the level where you are right now. And that can kind of vary. So like, I have a channel right now with about 300 subscribers. Somebody on my level could be someone with 150 or 500 subscribers, just in the sense of like growing our channels. But I also have, 5 years plus of experience doing video production. And so I might be on a different level for that specific tool, and I may need to find a group of people to work with, for that specific category that are at my level there. So like where you are as a YouTuber might be different from where you are as a presenter, or might be different from where you are as a marketer, or different from where you are as a video producer. So like there are lots of different ways you can measure it. But the bottom line is whatever it is you're feeling stuck on and you're not sure where to take the next step, it's good to find people where you are and form a group or a mastermind or something like that and try to figure out, okay, what is everybody working on? Like, what are you learning? And every time I've gotten into a group like that, I have exposed the people in that group to things that they hadn't considered as learning resources, and vice versa. And you end up getting to share all of these like little steps with one another, and everybody gets to level up. And that's the kind of group you're looking for. And then, definitely keep following. This is the last thing. Definitely keep following, your million subscriber channels, but look for channels that are just a little bit beyond where you are. That is going to be a much better source of information about, just like watching the things they're doing, what they talk about. Maybe try to find them on other social media platforms and see if they're iterating in public about the things that they're experimenting with. Some creators kind of keep that stuff close to the chest and don't really talk about their creative process and the things they're trying to experiment with. But some creators actually do, like they'll go on Twitter and they'll make a thread about, hey, so I'm trying this new technique with my videos and it's an experiment and it's this thing I'm trying out and it was really successful, and so I thought I'd share it with you. And they'll just like drop little nuggets of knowledge. The people with millions of subscribers maybe could teach you some of the same things, but that's not where their focus is anymore. They're already scaling. They're already way beyond that. And so finding people, like if you're a person with a 500 subscriber channel, finding a person with 1,000 or 1,500 subscribers and just studying what they're doing is a great way to answer that question of what you need to learn next. So that is it for that question. Then we're going to get into this last one, which is kind of a heavy one. So I debated whether or not to bring this question in, but how do I make videos when struggling with depression? So I think, and the reason I decided to go ahead and try to tackle this question was because I know a lot of creators had a hard time in many different ways over the past year. And you don't, like we're not going to put a blanket label on every situation and say we were all depressed, and because that wasn't the thing. And there's also a difference between clinical depression and situational depression when it has to do with the actual chemistry in the brain and something that needs to be diagnosed and treated by a professional. And so like this is, I have to give the disclaimer, I am not speaking in a professional capacity. I can only speak to what I know, and that's my own personal experience with depression and how I continued to create through it. And I think that this, just my story can be helpful. So I don't want to use this as like me trying to help you get through your depression, because I'm not qualified to do that. But over the past year, I experienced a number of different things. I went through burnout. I had some really difficult relational things that I was trying to work through with just people in my life. And I did go through some situational depression. And some of that actually, it came in waves a couple of times. And some of it came on the heels of the winter storm that we went through. Here in Texas, like we had such low temperatures that like we haven't seen in a century, and like people lost power, people lost water, and like the supplies were out at the grocery store, but you couldn't even get to the grocery store anyway because like they weren't plowing the roads or anything. And it was, I think the thing that really got to me about that situation was in my family, I kind of think of myself as like, oh, I'm the guy who knows what to do. When there's a crisis, like I'm the level-headed one who comes up with a plan and a solution and gets things done. And when we were faced with questions like, okay, how are we going to stay warm in our house overnight when it's like already down to 40 degrees? And like, should we try to outrun the storm and go to my in-laws' house, which, you know, like they still have power, but they may not have water. And there's a good possibility that we could just get stuck on the road. And I found myself like paralyzed and shut down. I couldn't work at all that week because we didn't have power. So like I wasn't publishing any videos or anything like that. But then after that, in the weeks that followed, I think that just really left an impression on me. And I just remember really struggling to square who I thought I was with how I responded to that situation. Like I really had a hard time. And so the thing that kept me creating and publishing really was just my process. And this isn't necessarily for my stuff. So this is actually a good point, because with my personal content, I didn't have any kind of process written down, and I just basically stopped making videos during that time for my own personal channel. And for Podia, like, yeah, I could have. It is my job, but I could have told them, hey, I'm really struggling here, and they're such a cool group of people. Like they would have understood and been like, it's fine, just take the time you need, you know, ease yourself back in. But I had such a solid production process that it was easy, even though I wasn't feeling it, to kind of fall into that groove and go through the motions without a lot of effort. Because one of the things that's true when you are experiencing depression is any small effort can feel monumental. And so having a process already in place took a lot of the work out of creating. Instead of me having to make an effort and figure out, when am I going to do this part? When am I going to do that part? I already had all of this stuff written down. And so if you don't already have a process, I would highly encourage you to write one down, come up with a production schedule. Check out the video that I posted last week, and you know, just to kind of get some ideas, but come up with something that's going to work for you and work in that consistently. so that when and if you do find yourself in a situation where you just, it feels like creation is a monumental effort, you have a process that you can kind of fall into and follow the motions. Now, that's not to say that you're always going to be able to just fall into that groove and still keep creating stuff. So I would say that you also need to give yourself some grace. If you get into the middle of the week and you're like, okay, so I could jump back into my process, but I'm like already behind by a few steps, and so like I have to play a little bit of catch up. Give yourself a break and then just pick it up at the beginning of the next interval. That's something that even when I'm not experiencing depression, I've learned to do with myself. Because I've got 6 kids and a lot of responsibilities that come with that. If there's an exceptionally busy week, like we've got the end of school year stuff coming up where we're going to have ceremonies and stuff like that, I might find myself in a situation where my process is so interrupted that I would have to like play a lot of catch up and work really hard to make sure that everything stays on track. And I've learned that it's just not worth it to do that to myself. And the thing about having a process is you can take a break from it and then start over at the beginning of your process the next time you're able to. And that's okay. Like, it's okay to miss a week of publishing content. So that's kind of like the combination of those two things, giving yourself grace and deciding I'm not going to try to play catch up. I'm going to just let this week go, and then I'll pick it up at the next interval. I think that's the best way to continue moving forward. So that was my experience. And again, like, I can't speak to what you are experiencing or whether or not you might actually need professional intervention. That's something that you need to work out and figure out for yourself. But hopefully, my experience gives you some ideas and helps you in some way. So, all right. So I think that about does it for these 3 questions. I'm going to check out the chat real quick and see if we have any other questions or comments to address. So Keshna says, I watched your process video and it sounds like you start with ideation, but if you don't have topics, should you research other social platforms? So I think I understand the question. So starting with ideation, when I say ideation, that's not necessarily always like off the top of your head, what can you think to talk about? So part of my ideation process, and that's actually really good. Like I should talk about how I do that and how it works. But part of my ideation process is actually going to other social media platforms. Like I went to, for a couple of these questions, in my Q&A over the past few weeks, I went to TubeBuddy's Twitter account, and they'll ask questions or like share things that video creators specifically, like these are the people I'm trying to reach. They're responding to TubeBuddy's tweets, and they're sharing like real questions and real struggles. And so that's a fantastic place for me to go and research and do some topic mining. There are a lot of different ways you can do that. Like you can go to Reddit and you can look at, like search different subreddits, look at threads. You can go to creators that you follow or who are like in the same industry that you're trying to reach, who have a much larger following, and look at their videos and read the comments in their videos and see if you can find questions that way. So like there's no rule that says you can't go to some other person's channel and like find questions and answer those questions on your own channel. I don't get, for the number of subscribers and followers I have on social media, I don't get 3 questions from people every week that I make a part of this Q&A. But I know where to go and find the kind of questions I think the people who might follow me would be asking. And especially when I can find those questions from real people, it's like I get a chance here to answer a real question from a real person. So they didn't necessarily ask me, but a real person is asking that question. And if I have an answer, if I have a satisfying answer, I can provide value. And so that's kind of the way I look at it. So I hope that answers your question, Keshna. All right, so I think that's going to do it. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me today and watch this live stream. And I'm excited to announce that, well, it's not really an announcement, but I'll just say that I'm starting my, I'm starting my content production workflow, or I started my content production workflow this week. So I did my ideation, I did my writing, and I actually filmed my first 2 videos in my new production workflow. And so next week, I'll be editing and publishing those videos, and I believe the first one is going to go out on Wednesday. We'll have another one go out on Thursday, and then of course on Friday we'll do the live Q&A, and then I'll have 2 more videos from this production cycle that I'll be publishing on Monday and Tuesday of the following week. And then from there on out, it'll be like week in, week out, 5 days a week content. And so I'm super excited about that, except for, like I said, the weeks that like there's way too much going on and I need to take a break from it. But that'll be good. So anyways, thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next time.